Okay, so friends, I just recorded a 16-minute video on my computer and now I can't find it. So we're trying this on my phone now. Okay, and we'll go through everything all over again. Okay, I'm going to try to answer some of these parking lot questions from last week for our exit ticket. I was excited that there were a lot of you that were excited to teach your lesson plan, to see your second graders work your lesson plan. You were very appreciative of the notes and working through things in class, so that's awesome. I got a few smiley faces on those. Okay, so thank you, thank you, thank you. Sorry, I'm going through them all again and they're kind of backwards. Last time I saved the good ones for the end. Let's see. Smiley face. Oh, look at this one. So excited. Okay. There were a lot of you that were very nervous. I got a lot of nervous comments. I'm nervous but excited. I'm nervous about keeping my kids on task. I'm nervous about writing the lesson plan. You guys got this. It's gonna be fine. Your kids love you. It may not feel like that when you're in there. And I know some of you are like, well, my kid doesn't talk to me very much, or I can't keep them on task, or they're just all over the place and don't work when I'm there. That's because they're so excited you're there. Like, kids love having visitors in the classroom. They love something that's a little bit of a change up from their normal day, especially when it's really cool college kids from UNK. So just know that your kids love having you there. They're going to love the lesson. It's going to be fine. You're going to get through it, and you're going to feel so good about yourself and so confident once you've taught it successfully, because you all will. I have confidence in you. Okay, let me try to get to some of these questions. I'm worried about getting my students excited and engaged in the lesson. They don't like to work when I'm there. Again, I'll just reiterate that they love having you there. Like, I am sure Dr. Cannell can attest to that they love having the visitors. So if you're genuinely worried about getting their attention, then think about, what are you using for your engagement set, for your lesson plan? Like, are you bringing in some fun manipulatives? Do you have like some visuals for them? Are you going to ask them to tell a little bit about themselves? Like, what's going to get them excited? What's going to get them talking? Okay, here's one. I'm worried that I won't be able to keep my 2 students engaged while my 3rd student is doing the independent activity on the iPad. Okay, I didn't realize some of you had 3 students. I thought everybody just had 1 or 2. Okay, so this is where you get to be creative as the teacher. If you have 1 student on the iPad, what can 2 other students do, either independently or together, to stay engaged? Are they going to be playing a game, like some of those fun dice games we've used? Do they get to do something on a whiteboard? Do they get to play around with the manipulatives some more? So there are lots of activities that you can bring in that are just as engaging, if not more, than an iPad. I know iPads seem really exciting, but they're not the end-all be-all. And just remind your students that everybody's going to get a turn on the iPad as well. So it's not like, oh, so-and-so gets to use it and we don't. There will be a turn for everyone. Let's see. I'm nervous to teach my lesson because my 2 buddies are on different levels. I did have a few of those comments about your buddies being on different levels, but you guys, you have been used to making some accommodations and modifications because we're almost to the end of field experience. So hopefully you've gotten some good ideas from when you've been in the field so far on how you can reach both of your buddies, how you can help some of the ones that need a little bit of extra guidance, how you can challenge those that need a little bit of extra push. If they're on 2 different levels, make sure that you are reflecting that in the practice pages and the assessment pages that you're choosing. They do not have to be given the exact same practice or assessment pages. You can definitely do instructional, and I do want you to do the instructional input together. However, if you need to have one student work on a different SMART page than the other student, that's perfectly fine. It's really not reasonable to expect that both of your students would be at the exact same level. So make sure that you are choosing assessment and practice pages that are practical for your students. Okay, how will this be assessed in the classroom? You will get points for your lesson plan to turn in, and of course you'll get points for teaching it in the field. I'm not going to go through it with like a red pen and mark it all up, guys. So don't worry about it. We filled out a lot of it together last week, so that should be good to go. And then we're going to talk about it and do kind of your rough draft is what's due Tuesday night. And then if you want to tweak it after we meet Wednesday, you're more than welcome to do so. You're also going to have a peer reviewing your lesson plan, so you have another set of eyes on it. So you'll be good. You'll be good to go. I don't feel confident in writing lesson plans. Sad face. Okay, guys, everybody goes through that. Lesson plans can be hard and they can be intimidating from the beginning, but that's why we do this. That's why we practice, because it's something that is it's a requirement. Obviously, it's an essential skill as a teacher, and it'll become second nature. I promise you one day, although it may not feel like it yet. But that's why we do this, so that you can gain confidence. Not everybody's going to have that confidence from the very beginning, so that's a totally natural feeling. How long will we have to teach the lesson? The same amount of time you would normally have when you're meeting with those first or second or third grade students, and I believe that time is like somewhere between 30 and 40 minutes. So give yourself, of course, time to have that transition time, get in, get your materials out, see your students and say hi, and then of course jumping into your lesson. Okay, will we be observed by a teacher or grad student while teaching our lesson? No, to my knowledge. I mean, you'll still have Dr. Cannell walking around like you would on any other field experience day, but you're not going to have someone looking over your shoulder, so don't worry. I don't like that either. What should we put for the justification of our assessment? Okay, that's just telling me why you chose the assessment page that you did. If you look at those assessment pages, some of them, when they start pretty basic, and then as you scroll down, they get a little bit harder. And so, based on what you know of your student, which one would apply, which one would meet their needs the best. So that's all you're telling me. I'm stuck on what exactly to put for previous learning. Okay, previous learning is just anything that you have observed in the past working with your student, whether it's through the games, whether it's through questioning, whether it's through things that they have just volunteered and told you. Also, if you're really or you're at a loss for what to put, think about like a baseline, like average first grader or second grader or third grader at this point in the year. What are they learning? What have they already learned? Hopefully you've been able to see some of that since you've been visiting their classrooms. It doesn't have to be super extensive. For the assessment worksheet, do we have the students work on it as practice and then give it to them again as the assessment also? Okay, there were a couple of questions about this, the practice pages or the SMART pages versus the assessment pages. They are intended to be two separate activities. So you would use the practice page, or if you want to call it the SMART page is how it's referred to sometimes. SMART sheet, I think is what they call them. Then that would be more for guided practice, right? And then you would have your separate sheet for the assessment. And if you go back to the beginning where we talked about all the lesson planning on Canvas, it actually separates it out for you. It has, pick your practice sheet, pick your SMART sheet here, pick your assessment sheet here, and it gives you a range of numbers if you're working with the multiplication ones as well. So they are intended to be two separate sheets. That being said, we did talk about in class how if you especially are teaching multiplication and you did not really like how the practice sheet and the assessment sheet aligned, then we said that you could use one or the other and just give the even numbers for practice and the odd numbers for assessment. Basically, I just don't want students doing the exact same problems 10 minutes later. So, break it down however you need to, but make sure that they are different problems, that they're new quantities that students are working with, but the same skill. Okay, how do I make an activity fun, especially teaching multiplication, addressing the intro of the lesson? Okay, that would be engagement. Okay, anything fun would be something that is if you're wanting to make it fun, then bring in something new or something different that they're not used to seeing in math. Like something really easy and cheap is using cereal for manipulatives. Okay, it's like fun. It's like using the Captain Crunch Christmas berries. That's fun. It's the holiday time of the year. They're different colors, and then they get to eat them when they're done. So that's fun. Maybe you want to bring in a visual to go with the poem for multiplications. Maybe you want to bring in some really fun, like, sparkly markers for them, or some glitter pens, or something. Kids get excited about the littlest things. So bringing in cereal, using like special neon colored pens, using some visuals that you might find, on Pinterest or in a book or something like that. All of those are like things that would be fun. It doesn't have to be super complex. Do we need to put assessment and strategy pages on the lesson plan? Nope. Just tell me which ones you're using based on either the title or the page number. You don't have to like copy and paste them or link them. How long should we spend doing each step? And what do we do for instructional input? Okay, so you need to think about the time frame that you have, which is about 30 to 40 minutes. And then you think about, okay, the different components of the lesson plan. So let's start with the intro. That engagement is going to be short and sweet, like no longer than 5 minutes. 5 minutes. Same with the closure. It's going to be short and sweet, no longer than 5 minutes. Okay, so let's say you have a 30-minute lesson plan. You already took off 5 minutes for the intro and 5 minutes for the closure. That leaves you with 20 minutes for that core instruction. That includes the instructional input, the guided practice, and the independent practice. So if those were equaled out, that's about 7 minutes each step. However, not all students are going to need 7 minutes for instructional input. Some of them are going to run right through that. They're going to understand that skill, and they're going to be ready to move on to practice. Other students might need more time in the instructional input and less time with independent practice because they're going to need more scaffolding. So you kind of have to play around with that based on the needs of your student. Okay, hopefully that answered that question. Let's see. Will I be able to email you or meet with you to go over before class next Wednesday? You can definitely email me or post on the discussion board. I don't think we'll have time to meet before class just because I'm not on campus. However, we are going to devote pretty much the entire time as needed on Wednesday to go over the lesson plans again, tweak them if needed, and do a run through with some peers for peer review and practice. So we'll have time for all that. Once the lesson is taught, do we post in the reflection part of the lesson plan? Nope. If you go back to the template, it's kind of little, but it's in red. And if you scroll to the bottom, it says MM1-stop, and that's before you get to the reflection. So you don't have to do that. Let's see. Time frame, we talked about that. Okay, am I supposed to write almost 2 separate core instruction sections, one for each student? I'm assuming that this person is asking that because your students are at different levels. But no, you are not writing 2 separate core instructions, because if you think about a classroom, you're going to be delivering the same instructional input to your entire class, and you're going to have varying levels in there. So you're not going to write a specific core instruction for every student. So now you're doing that with 2 students. You're delivering the same instructional input at the same time to them both. And yes, they may have varying levels, but that's where you as the teacher think about how you're going to explain it and model it while meeting the needs of both learners. Now, when you get to the guided practice and independent practice, then yeah, those practice pages and assessment pages may be 2 different ones for your students, but the instructional input should be the same. It should be delivered at the same time, the same, you're doing it together as if these were the only 2 students in your class. So you don't have to write 2 separate ones. Okay, let's see. Okay, do we use a practice sheet for the instructional input? I would prefer that you did not, because you're already doing a practice sheet for guided practice, and then you're doing an assessment sheet for the closure, so that would just be a 3rd sheet, and that's just kind of a lot of worksheets. So we talked about this in class, but instructional input is where you're bringing in your manipulatives, you're modeling with them, you are problem solving with students, you're offering direct instruction, teaching them this strategy, this skill. And so if you feel like you need to model an exact, like, a problem from the practice page or the same way that it's set up, maybe you bring in a whiteboard and do that, or maybe you do it on a poster sheet or something. But I really don't prefer that you give them a practice sheet for the instructional input. That needs to be more the time for use of manipulatives. Okay, and then the last question, or just a comment about it feeling a little rushed. And I just wanted to address that because, you guys, we've been working on lesson plans. Like, I know it seems like we just started, like, the actual template last week, but in reality, we started the lesson planning process, like, the week before Halloween. So the week before Halloween, we did the lesson plan preliminary tasks, And then the week of Halloween, we met out of class because it was Halloween, and that was the lesson planning prep tasks. And then last week, we did the lesson planning creation, and that's also this week, and we filled out a lot of it together. And then this next week when we meet, we will be revising and peer reviewing and teaching it. So that's 4 weeks. 4 weeks we've worked on it for one lesson. And so to put it in perspective, think about how many lessons you're going to be teaching on a daily basis to your students. How many lessons you're going to be prepping and teaching. And that's why, yes, it seems overwhelming right now, but we're starting and then we're going to be building up. So maybe it does seem a little like overwhelming right now, and hopefully it hasn't seemed too rushed because everything you've been doing is leading up to this. You guys, I'm confident you can do this. It's one lesson that you're teaching for 30 minutes, and to students you've had before, no one's going to be watching over your shoulder. Okay, you are in control and you are their teacher, and they are going to love you. So hopefully that inspires a little bit of confidence, and just know that you can come with questions on Wednesday. We will be doing a run through to practice everything. We're going to be doing a peer review. Make sure that you have all of your materials prepped and ready to go as if you were teaching it to your students that day. Okay, thanks guys. Have a good night.